we're only just getting started.
Okay.
Frank Lantz.
All right, so I'm going to rant about something called the Immersive Fallacy. And before I do, I want to warn the audience that at a certain point in my rant, a bear is going to attack and almost kill someone. So if there are any pregnant women or people with heart conditions in the audience, you've been warned. Okay, so I think that there is a widespread and largely unexamined belief in the game developer community and among a lot of gamers that computer games are evolving towards an infinitely detailed and utterly seamless simulation. That, in fact, this is their destiny, to evolve towards a kind of Star Trek holodeck, a totally a seamless simulation which is indistinguishable from direct experience. So that's the straw man that I want to attack. And it's not realistic graphics per se, but it's just this ideology of total simulation. So what's wrong with this? Like, why does the phrase, the player will be able to go anywhere and do anything, sound like nails on a chalkboard to me? It's partly because it's based in what I think is a very naive and unsophisticated understanding of how simulation works, of how representation works. Okay, so you have a thing, a part of the world, and then you have a representation of that thing, a sign, a symbol, a picture, a model. And there's a gap here in between. And the gap is made up by all the differences, the ways in which this is not this, and it can resemble it, but all of the differences that allow this representation to be distinguishable from the thing that is being represented. And the immersive fallacy is the idea that computer simulation allows us to close this gap and somehow make these things identical. And the problem with that is that this gap is an essential and important part of how representations work, of how they do their work. This gap is where the magic happens. And so, for example, let's say a bear is attacking a friend of yours and is about to kill them, and we have this word, the word bear, right? And you can shout out the word bear and warn your friend. And the word bear would not be better if it had teeth and could kill you. In fact, it would be much, much worse. It would be pointless. And the same thing is true of the bear mask that the priest of the tribe puts on during the ritual, and it's also true of the drawings of bears that we put on the walls of the cave, and it's also true of the game Bear. And it's also true of statues. Statues would not be better if they could move. Model airplanes would not be better if they were the same size as actual airplanes. A painting of an apple would not be better if it was edible. And by the same token, if you think about it, the incredible sense of freedom that is created by Grand Theft Auto is created by carefully limiting the actions of the player. So this is not to say that games that have very detailed and dense simulations in them of people or systems or environments cannot be great, because they often can. But the danger is that if you are laboring under the illusion of the immersive fallacy, the danger is that you will simply be layering simulation on top of simulation and adding more and more details to your simulation with the idea that a compelling experience will just emerge naturally out of this. But compelling experiences are not just cumulative, that they're also they're carved out. They're made of gaps. And so an example of the slippery slope would be that we have bathrooms in our environments because it's more realistic. And then eventually someone thinks, well, we should have eating and shitting in our game because we have all these bathrooms. And that's not a good reason to put eating and shitting into your game. That you should put eating and shitting into your game if you have some great idea of how to make those interesting and exciting and cool. And even if you could, by some magic, create this impossible, perfect, simulated world, where would you be? You would need to stick a game in there. You would need to look down and make chess out of the little simulated rocks and shells in your world. And that it's like going back to square one. And I don't want to play chess anymore. I don't want to play chess again. I want to play a game that has the dense and detailed simulation and the chess combined. And to do that, I think, requires a kind of a light touch and an understanding of how representation works, and a respect for these gaps, and an understanding that they are part of your tool set for building what you're building. So that's my rant.
Yeah! Thank you, Frank.